Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. The Trudeau Liberals say when it comes to Canadian truckers crossing the border back into Canada, they will need to be vaccinated. Lethbridge East MLA Nathan Newdorf joins us to discuss what the UCP is doing to rebuild trust with Albertans as we head into next year's provincial election. And Prince Andrew has been stripped of his titles and charities. We will explain why.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. The federal government says the vaccine mandate for truckers crossing into Canada from the United States will come into effect this Saturday as planned. That's despite a previous statement from the Canada Border Services Agency that said Canadian truck drivers would be exempt. Health Minister Jean-Yves Duclos, along with the Transport and Public Safety Ministers, say the CBSA statement from earlier was provided in error. The Canadian Trucking Alliance and the American Trucking Associations say up to 26,000 drivers who make regular cross-border trips will be sidelined as a result of the mandate. Canada's joining Mexico in asking for a dispute resolution panel to challenge Washington's interpretation of new rules on duty-free cars and trucks. Rules of origin dictate how much of a product must originate in the region in order to qualify for tariff-free status. Canada says the United States is violating the agreement by adopting a stricter formula for how those thresholds are being met. The Alberta government says more rapid tests will be available to Albertans who are testing for COVID-19. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney says the tests will be available while supplies last.
In Alberta, we've made rapid tests more widely available because of this and more widely available than many other places. With this approach, every Albertan is eligible for a new, free 5-test kit every 2 weeks as long as supply is available. And we're working every day to get that supply. Since mid-December, we have distributed nearly 4.85 million rapid tests to pharmacies and health sites across the province so that anyone with an Alberta health card could go pick up a kit. And I should say that's on top of about nearly 9 million tests that we had already distributed, rapid antigen tests to high-priority organizations like homeless shelters, nursing homes, and the like.
On Tuesday, Quebec Premier François Legault announced his province has a plan to tax the unvaccinated in his province. As for here in Alberta, a resounding no was given as to whether or not our province would bring in something similar, a tax on residents. As Micah Quinn explains now, Lethbridge East MLA Nathan Newdorf did not hold back with his opinion on the matter.
Absolutely not.
Newdorf made his opinion clear on Thursday that the Alberta government will not be bringing in a tax on the unvaccinated.
That is not the people of Alberta in any way, shape, or form. And I think we're actually much closer to moving towards a more productive and unifying kind of stage of this pandemic towards that endemic stage. And we're really looking forward to shifting the conversation towards the immune versus the non-immune, or those who are still at risk versus those who are not at risk. So we're really trying to get towards the end path here. And I don't think that's an avenue that we're going to go in any way, shape, or form.
Legault was pressed on how his government would implement the tax plan. He didn't answer the question, but he did go on to say that the unvaccinated population in Quebec are putting a strain on the healthcare system.
And I think it's normal that the majority of the population is asking that there be a consequence. And yes, we will continue to look at spreading the use of the vaccine passport. I think we have to go further. And I think that right now, it's a question also of fairness for the 90% of the population who made some sacrifices.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says he needs more details on Quebec's plan before he can comment on whether or not he will support it. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
The COVID-19 pandemic has impacted the lives of many Canadians, including those of us here in southern Alberta. Many political parties' popularity has plummeted during the pandemic, including the UCP. Lethbridge East MLA Nathan Newdorf recently joined us on Bridge City News, and we asked MLA Newdorf, what's the key for the party to rebuild its image as we head into the next provincial election?
I think in a word, Hal, I would put it as service and meaningful service to the constituents across the province, helping them get back to the lives that they had before the pandemic.
MLA Newdorf will also discuss help livestock producers and beekeepers will be receiving very soon. That 15-minute Q&A is coming up after business news. As COVID-19 continues to make its way through the city, the Lethbridge School Division and the Holy Spirit Catholic School Division say they've experienced increased levels of staff absences. In a release today, the division says on Wednesday and Thursday, around 7.6% of staff were absent due to an illness. Tuesday, that number was 6.7%. During a similar time period last year, staff absences averaged 4.85%. When it comes to the Holy Spirit Catholic School Division, they say they saw an increase of 9% this week. And around the same time last year, the absentee rate was around 5 to 6%. Officials say the Lethbridge School Division has not been able to find replacements, but has been able to keep all schools operational. A concerned citizen in our city is in favor of implementing a light nuisance bylaw. Rena Wass presented to the Community Safety Standing Policy Committee on Thursday afternoon to outline why she believes this would be a pretty good idea. Calgary and Saskatoon have already implemented similar bylaws. Wass says if your neighbor streams light into your property, a new bylaw would give you the opportunity to protect the interior and exterior of your home.
If a neighbor turns on a light and it streams into your bedroom, into your yard, there isn't a thing you can do about it right now. With a bylaw, you would be able to address it, just like a noise bylaw. Dog is barking and you don't care, you're not going to call the bylaw officer. But if it does disrupt your peace and quiet or your baby sleeping, there is a bylaw to address that. So this would be complaint-driven, just like other bylaws are.
The committee requested that city administration provide a report into the potential implication of a light nuisance bylaw by April the 14th. The 2022 Rotary Club's Agriculture Scholarship Program is underway. A number of student applicants have already applied to the program, but the Rotary Club says they'd like to see even more people apply. This year, a $10,000 scholarship is being offered. Rotary Club Committee Chair Wayne Lindwall explains what they're looking for in applicants.
It's not just about academic achievement, it's also about their role in the community and their participation in club activities and athletics and leadership skills and advocacy for the principles of Rotary and advocacy for agriculture in Southern Alberta. So every year we've been amazed at the quality and caliber of the students that have applied. And every year we say we wish we had more money to give the students. And the $10,000 obviously goes a long ways to covering not just their tuition, but some of the costs these days associated with attending college or university.
Applications for the scholarship program close on January the 31st. Well, it was a close one for the town site in Waterton Lakes National Park. Parks Canada says a large avalanche roared down Bertha Peak over the weekend just outside of the small resort community. Staff say the avalanche dumped 10 meters of debris on the Bertha Falls Trail and stopped just before reaching a street at the town site. Fortunately, no one was hurt and no structures were damaged. Parks Canada says the risk of avalanches has increased in the park due to large snow volumes, rising temperatures, and extreme winds. A Kelowna family with a 4-year-old boy battling leukemia says they're facing eviction from the Ronald McDonald House in Vancouver over their vaccination status. A video which went viral Wednesday afternoon shows the father of the child, Austin Ferguson, displaying a letter from the charity stating that effective January 17th, everyone 5 years of age and older working, staying, or visiting their facilities must show proof of full vaccination in addition to completing existing screening procedures. Ferguson confronted a staff member at the RMH, arguing that his child has suffered enough, and eviction is the last thing he and his family need.
But yeah, because we don't have the vaccine, you're going to throw us on the snow with a few weeks' notice. Like, this is some kind of crazy evil like I have never seen in my life. You're evicting kids with leukemia, kids who have strokes, kids with Down syndrome. Do you understand how evil this is?
Would you like to just...
Where are we going to go?
A GoFundMe campaign, which was started last October, saw a flood of contributions for the family, surging past $150,000 in less than 24 hours. Bridge City News reached out to the Ronald McDonald House in BC on Wednesday afternoon for a comment regarding the policy change, and at the time of this broadcast, they've yet to respond. British Columbia is providing a $1 million grant to expand training and resources aimed at preventing overdose deaths in the construction industry. BC's Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, Sheila Malcolmson, has the details.
The toxic drug crisis continues to take lives in British Columbia at a terrible and tragic rate. Men are affected the most. In British Columbia, men make up almost 80% of all toxic drug death poisonings. And of these toxic drug deaths, where we know where someone worked, nearly 20% of those who died work in construction, trades, or as equipment operators. So today we are taking an important step to reach out and support those working in construction and trades.
BC's Ministry of Economic Recovery is now accepting applications for its COVID-19 Closure Relief Grant program that was announced after last month's shutdowns. Officials say, however, business owners who defied health orders will not be eligible.
This $10 million grant program is designed to complement the existing federal government programs. For instance, a gym with 5 employees could receive up to $5,000 of non-repayable grant with the COVID relief grant program. And because of the recent changes by the federal government, could also receive wage and rent supports for up to 75% through the federal government's local lockdown program. And their employees can now apply for the federal worker lockdown benefit, which they can receive up to $300 a week for income support. It's also important for me to note that businesses that have not followed the health orders and have refused to close down their businesses are not eligible for the grants that we're announcing today. And we have built in an auditing system to ensure those businesses that have defied orders will not be able to get access to these supports.
Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe has tested positive for COVID-19. Government officials say the Premier has been routinely using rapid antigen testing to monitor for the virus. Fortunately, he's not been experiencing any symptoms despite the positive test. In a tweet, Moe says he is feeling fine, but will be self-isolating and working from home over the next 5 days. The government of Manitoba says everyone in the province will likely be exposed to COVID-19 as the province is shifting its efforts away from trying to contain its spread. Manitoba's Deputy Chief Public Health Officer says the virus is no longer an emerging illness and the ability to contain it is limited.
It is highly likely that everyone will be exposed to the virus in the coming weeks. Some Manitobans will have immunity from a previous infection or vaccines. This will make COVID cases less severe, but the sheer number of cases still has the potential to overwhelm our healthcare system, which is something we are monitoring closely. Like seasonal influenza, we have to adjust to working, learning, and living with COVID-19 circulating in our communities.
Ontario says students and staff in schools and childcare settings will each get 2 rapid COVID-19 tests after schools return to in-person learning on Monday. Ontario's Education Minister says the rapid tests will be distributed beginning next week.
Now, Ontario's plan to open and protect schools is focused on deploying millions of rapid tests to our schools and our childcare centres, enhancing ventilation and high-quality PPE, along with increasing access to vaccines for both children on a voluntary basis and staff. And as an additional measure, amid the highly transmissible Omicron variant beginning the week of January 17th, I am announcing that rapid antigen tests will be provided for schools in childcare and public schools, children in childcare settings, and students in public elementary schools. Staff and students will receive 2 tests each as an initial supply, with over 3.9 million rapid tests shipped to schools as we speak, ready for January 17th.
Quebec Premier François Legault says he will lift a 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew on Monday and expand his province's vaccine passport to include big box stores.
The wave of hospitalization is expected to peak in the next coming days. This means that the measures we've put in place have worked. We're going in the right direction, but we have to remain very careful. Number of hospitalization is still very high and will maybe continue to increase for the next few days. It was announced last night. Public Health has recommended that we reopen schools next Monday. This is a good news. Important, very important for our children. I know that some parents and teachers might be worried, but Omicron has less effect on children, especially when they are vaccinated.
New Brunswick is entering a new lockdown to curb rising COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations. Premier Blaine Haig says the new measures will give the time needed to slow down transmission of the virus.
On the advice of Public Health, Cabinet is moving New Brunswick to the Level 3 phase of our winter plan to manage COVID-19, effective tomorrow night at 11:59 p.m. We will be at Level 3 for just over 2 weeks, or 16 days, until Sunday, January 30th at 11:59 p.m. Think of it as short-term pain for long-term gain.
Inflation is not only a problem in our country, but it is south of the border as well. Inflation jumped at its fastest pace in nearly 40 years last month, a 7% spike from a year earlier. Many consumers say they are feeling the pinch.
I still worry about prices increasing because, we're kind of at our budget cap at this point. If anything keeps rising, it does feel like we are going to have to make severe adjustments to our budget to just kind of maintain. It's a big stressor for us. I mean, we are working off of 2 incomes luckily, but it's been very tight. Especially over the last 6 months for us, it was a huge source of why we decided to move out of the city.
There's been an inflation in everything, delivery costs, like product costs, everything seems like it's going up. It's harder to make your dollar last these days, it seems. You have to be a little bit more choosy about where you spend your money.
Prince Andrew has been stripped of his military titles and charities a day after a judge ruled a sexual abuse civil lawsuit against the Queen's son could proceed. With the Queen's approval and agreement, the Duke of York's military affiliations and royal patronages have been returned to the Queen. He'll now defend his case as a private citizen. Earlier this week, a judge in New York ruled against a motion by Andrew's legal team to dismiss a lawsuit brought against him by Virginia Giuffre, who alleges she was trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein to perform sex acts with Andrew when she was just 17. Andrew has denied those claims. A campaigner who fights for the rights of the LGBTQ2+ community and who took a Northern Ireland bakery to court lost his appeal against the UK Supreme Court's unanimous decision in favour of the bakery. We have more now in this report.
A gay rights activist has lost a 7-year discrimination dispute over a cake order with the Christian-run Asher's Baking Company, as the European Court of Human Rights ruled his case inadmissible. In 2014, the Northern Ireland-based bakers turned down Gareth Lee's order for a same-sex marriage campaign cake because it conflicted with their Christian beliefs. But the Equality Commission for Northern Ireland pursued them through the UK court. However, in October 2018, the Supreme Court found in Asher's favour. In a recent interview with the Christian Institute, who have supported their case throughout this, Daniel and Amy MacArthur reflected on why it was worth going through this ordeal.
God helped us through that, so He's going to give us grace to get through today. We're not saying it was easy, but was it good for us? Yeah, it was good for us. And can we see that God used it in our lives and in other people's lives? Yeah, we can.
The only way that precedents are going to be set that can help other Christians is to really keep going and through the courts, and that probably will get some media attention, but it's worth it in the end if it can help other believers who are facing similar challenges.
And the Christian Institute's Simon Calvert says this latest outcome was the right result.
It's a good result. I feel very pleased for the MacArthur family and indeed very pleased for the Christian Institute supporters who have supported the family and prayed for them over the last 8 years. It's been a long and difficult road, but this is a good outcome.
Also welcoming the European Court of Human Rights decision was Peter Linus, UK Director of the Evangelical Alliance.
I think ultimately it's a good result for everybody in that human rights have been affirmed in this moment. I think everybody's better off because actually nobody can be compelled to write a message against their will, and that's actually a good result all round. So definitely pleased that this has finally, hopefully now, come to an end.
And the Christian Institute concluded that this is good news for free speech, good news for Christians, and good news for the MacArthurs. Peter Wooding for the Global News Alliance.
You know, many of us have gone through about a litre of windshield washer fluid this past week as the meltdown continued here in southwestern Alberta. And the warmer temperatures will be sticking around for some time. Full weather details are coming up. We hit double-digit temperatures again here in Lethbridge today. Tonight, there's a slight chance of rain mixed with snow developing in a low near -3. Friday, mainly sunny with a high of 4. Saturday, a few clouds expected with a high near 11. Sunday, clouds mixed with sunshine and a high of 5. Monday, the mercury will climb up to 9 degrees. Now, there's a chance of flurries on Tuesday with the temperature dropping to -6. Wednesday, mainly cloudy with a high near -2. The average high for this time of year is -2 and an average low of -14. The highest temperature of this date was recorded back in 1943 at 12 degrees, and the record low was a very cold -39 in 2005. The sun rose at 8:24 and set at 4:56. Let's see how Friday is shaping up across our home and native land. Expect periods of drizzle and 8 degrees in both Victoria and Vancouver. Mainly sunny and +2 for Calgary. Just a few clouds and 0 for Edmonton on Friday. A chance of flurries at -11 for Regina. A mixture of sun and cloud at -9 for Saskatoon. Clearing and -15 degrees in Winnipeg. Just a few clouds and -6 is on tap for Toronto. Sunshine and -16 for Ottawa. Clearing and -13 degrees in Montreal. In Atlantic Canada, expect light flurries of -1 in Fredericton, New Brunswick. Periods of rain or drizzle and 4 degrees in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Snow mixed with rain at +2 in Charlottetown, PEI. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, expect rain and a high of 6 degrees on Friday. Reitman says it paid creditors $95 million as it exits creditor protection after 20 months. The Montreal-based clothing retailer says it has paid court-appointed monitor Ernst & Young to distribute funds to creditors according to the plan of the arrangement. A list of known creditors shows Reitman's owed a total of over $192 million at that time. The company says it also obtained a credit facility for up to $115 million from the Bank of Montreal. The funds will be used to pay creditors and for working capital, including store openings and renovations. Many industries across Canada are seeing a labor shortage right now. Sometimes there are just not enough employees available to do the job. Antonio Giovanovich is the founder and CEO of the Canadian Workplace Culture Index. He says employers today really have to sell themselves to employees. He says oftentimes the ball is in the employee's court.
Organizations in the coming year are going to have to do a good job of really demonstrating their overall value proposition to recruit talent. The market is definitely an employee's market, and many people are getting multiple job offers. And I know as an organization ourselves, the talent that we're recruiting, we're trying to do a good job of sharing what we offer outside of just the salary.
Antonio Giovanovich will also talk about the shift in workplace culture with BCN's Jeanette Rocher. That's coming up after Business News. Princess Cruises has pleaded guilty to violating its probation to previous environmental crimes. A plea agreement signed in a Miami federal court says the company must pay $1 million criminal fine and undertake remedial measures to ensure its parent company, Carnival Corporation, establish and maintain an independent internal investigation office. Princess was fined $40 million back in 2017 after pleading guilty to dumping oil-contaminated waste from one of its vessels, then covering it up. 2 years later, it was convicted of 6 probation violations and fined another $20 million. Shares in Biogen dropped more than 7.5% a day after it was announced that Medicare in the United States is limiting coverage of the drug maker's new Alzheimer's disease treatment. Officials say patients taking the drug Aduhelm will have to participate in clinical trials to assess the drug's effectiveness in order for Medicare to cover the cost. Medicare is expected to cover the cost for most of the patients who opt for the drug. Aduhelm can cost as much as $28,000 US annually, not counting expenses for brain scans and other care patients will need while taking it. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down 102 points on the day to finish at 21,292. The Dow was down 176 points to 36,113. The S&P 500 was down 67 points to 4659, and the Nasdaq was down 381 on the day to 14,806. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down 52 cents to 82.12 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 59 cents to 427 US. Gold was down 2 cents to 1822.52 US an ounce, and silver was down a cent to 23.08 US an ounce. Wheat is at $12.19 per bushel, barley's at $9.68, canola's at $22.62, and corn is at $10.57 per bushel. Live cattle were up 43 cents to $137. Feeder cattle were up $1.05 to $162.93, and lean hogs were down $1 to $77.85. The Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours to $79.92 US. Recapping one of our top stories, the federal government says the vaccine mandate for truckers crossing into Canada from the U.S. will come into effect this Saturday as planned. That's despite a previous statement from the Canada Border Services Agency saying that Canadian truck drivers would be exempt. Health Minister Jean-Yves Duclos, along with the Transport and Public Safety Ministers, say the CBSA statement from earlier was provided in error. The Canadian Trucking Alliance and the American Trucking Associations say up to 26,000 drivers who make regular cross-border trips will be sidelined as a result of the mandate. Coming up, an exclusive one-on-one interview with Lethbridge East MLA Nathan Neudorf, who will discuss what the UCP is doing to try and restore trust and faith with Albertans leading up to next year's provincial election. That Q&A is on deck. The province of Quebec is looking into issuing fines for those who are unvaccinated. Will Alberta go down a similar path? Premier Jason Kenney has said in the past that getting the COVID-19 vaccine will not become mandatory in our province, but also recall a time when we weren't supposed to have any of those vaccine passports either. To discuss this in more detail, as Lethbridge East MLA Nathan Neudorf joins us now via Zoom. Nathan, would Alberta maybe potentially follow Quebec's lead and look at maybe bringing in a tax for the unvaxxed? What are your thoughts?
Absolutely not, Hal. That is not the people of Alberta in any way, shape, or form. And I think we're actually much closer to moving towards a more productive and unifying kind of stage of this pandemic towards that endemic stage. And we're really looking forward to shifting the conversation towards the immune versus the non-immune, or those who are still at risk versus those who are not at risk. So we're really trying to get towards the end path here. And I don't think that's an avenue that we're going to go in any way, shape, or form.
Some of the supporters for the tax for the unvaxxed saying, well, you can use the funds to support the healthcare system. I guess that's why some people were actually behind the cause there. Nathan, students kindergarten through grade 12 are back in school. Many parents are celebrating that fact, and a lot of kids are pretty happy about it. Now, you've spoken to many parents in our region. How important was it for the mental health of the kids and maybe the parents for the students to be back to in-person learning?
It was very important, Hal. Well, parents would still have concerns, as many people do, about the pandemic, air quality, cleanliness, safety precautions, those kinds of things. Parents generally, and in the vast majority, realize that in-person learning is the best kind of learning for their children, and they really want to see those kids get back in the classroom and to as normal a life as they can. So that was really important, and by far the majority are very supportive of going back to in-class learning.
Now, due to the rising demand PCR tests, Nathan, Alberta changed its eligibility as to who can gain access to them. Let's talk about who really is eligible right now.
Sure. It's really meant to be focused on those who have a high clinical risk factor of a severe outcome. So those who live and work in high-risk settings, those who are in continued care or in frontlines healthcare positions, we really want to make sure that those are the ones with the greatest access to those PCR tests. We just don't have the availability to test everybody who's positive right now. That's one of the trends of this Omicron virus is many people get it, even though they would mostly experience very low and mild symptoms. So we really have to allocate our resources in the most effective areas possible.
And now news coming out of Cyprus that there's actually a hybrid virus or variant of it called the Deltacron, Delta and the Omicron, so remains to be seen. Have you heard of any of those cases that made their way to our province?
I haven't heard that any have made their way to the province. I have heard about it. There is some information from Dr. Hinshaw and her staff that wave may have started prior to Omicron, but because of the transmissibility of Omicron, it has already overcome that. But we'll have to wait and see, and we'll be continuing to watch that closely.
Nathan, Canada's Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault says he wants to eliminate our country's oil and gas sector within 2 years. I mean, that's the bread and butter of the Alberta economy. How is that even possible, and why would you want to threaten an industry which provides billions of dollars and creates thousands of jobs.
It's not possible, Hal. And frankly, to be honest, it's ridiculous to suggest. Virtually every home in Canada is heated by oil and gas or electricity produced from oil and gas and its derivatives. So not only would we freeze out many people, in Quebec alone last year, there was that rail derailment, and there were many seniors in particular, and many homes in Quebec that were at risk of freezing to death because of lack of oil and gas. This is just not a practical suggestion to make. It's not helpful. And that's without considering the hundreds of thousands of jobs that would be lost, the billions of dollars of revenue. Quite frankly, to even suggest it creates more uncertainty. To actually do it could quite literally bankrupt not just Alberta, but the entire country. And I think that the minister really needs to take a new look at his role and his responsibility, and maybe look at some real possibilities instead of suggesting things like this.
What kind of financial footing do you think Alberta's on right now? I guess we got nowhere to go but up following the pandemic, the recession we were in, but oil is now over $80 US a barrel. Are we in pretty good financial shape heading through 2022?
Well, we're definitely in a better position than we were, and I think this underlines the challenges that Alberta has always faced with the oil and gas sector and the ups and downs of a resource market. We are still very much looking at making sure that our spending is appropriate to our income, but we're definitely trending in a very positive direction, and I hope to see some very good numbers when the budget is introduced later in February.
I chatted with Jobs Minister Doug Schweitzer recently, had him on the show, and he talked about the 130,000 jobs over the past year making their way to Alberta here. Where do you see a lot of industries really thriving outside of the oil and gas sector now that oil has rebounded?
Sure, there's lots of sectors that are doing very well. We see our STEM and research, our film industries, our financial and financial technologies industry. We hope that this year we'll see a strong rebound for our tourism. Our agricultural industry has been steady throughout, and construction is definitely on the rise, not just in the province, but also here in Lethbridge. So a lot of bright spots that will continue to grow as we come out of the winter season and into spring and summer, and very much looking forward to that.
Now let's talk agriculture for just a moment here, since it's a really big part of our economy here in southwestern Alberta. The province recently announced that livestock producers and beekeepers can apply for more funding for those hit with severe drought conditions last summer. How much funding are we talking about through this Canada-Alberta Livestock Feed Assistance Agri-Recovery Initiative?
In total, the province and the federal government together have come up with $340 million of supportive funding for those who were really negatively impacted by the drought last year. Farmers and ranchers, in terms of the cattle industry in particular, would be able to apply for up to $200 a head. And that deadline is January 31st. I'm not quite sure how that translates to beekeepers. I don't know if they get funding by the head or if their funding is more lump sum in nature, but they would also be eligible for some supports.
Let's circle back to jobs for just a moment here, Nathan. Now, like we mentioned earlier, Alberta added 130,000 new jobs, but unfortunately in our region, the unemployment rate actually went up from 4.8 to 5.2%. What more can the province do to ensure that people here in Lethbridge and southwestern Alberta are working?
Sure, and I just want to create a little bit of context. 4.8 to 5.2 is still extremely low in terms of unemployment. I mean, if you get into the 3s and 4s, that's almost unsustainably low. So 5.2 is still rather healthy. It's a good number to be at. But I think it's actually, when you go a little bit deeper into it, it's an indication that our economy is actually expanding. More jobs are coming onto the market, and more people are looking for those jobs. Both are positive indicators, even though that unemployment number has crept up. I think Lethbridge in Alberta is still the second lowest of unemployment in the entire province. So we're at a very good place. I think, though, we don't want to see those unemployment numbers rise. I think we're in a period of transition, and they actually speak of better things coming. There's a lot of employers in Lethbridge and area that are looking for people to come to work. So as those people re-enter the market, they enter the market as unemployed, but they will be, once they get a job, they will become gainfully employed. And I think we're seeing a good trend overall, even though we've had a slight dip, which is not uncommon during the winter season.
Our province's Associate Minister of Status of Women says Alberta leads Canada with a 60.6% employment rate. What kind of opportunities can women find here in our province compared to other provinces throughout the country?
Well, that's one of the great diversities of Alberta. There are so many opportunities for women and all those looking for jobs. We've really put a focus on STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics for women through the programs of high school and post-secondary. There are many research firms moving to Alberta. There's new energy opportunities in hydrogen and that kind of thing. There's, as we said before, industries like film, financial tech, tourism, agriculture, construction, all looking for more workers, all have significant opportunities for women. We are moving in a very good direction and very proud for Alberta to lead the country in women's employment.
Nathan, many political parties' popularity have taken a big hit during the pandemic. The UCP is no exception. What will it take for your party to rebuild its image, especially in our region, leading up to the next provincial election in 2023?
I think in a word, Hal, I would put it as service and meaningful service to the constituents across the province, helping them get back to the lives that they had before the pandemic. This pandemic has disrupted everyone, as you just noted, particularly governments. But I'm very pleased to represent Lethbridge East and see roles like my new appointment as Parliamentary Secretary and Water Stewardship for the Minister of Environment. Water is a very important issue for us down in the south. To be able to have that voice at that table, I would hope shows Lethbridgeites that I'm serving their needs. I've recently been appointed to the Priorities Implementation Cabinet Committee to help make decisions on opening our economy again while facing the COVID pandemic. Again, Lethbridge's voice at a table making significant decisions. I was elected by all of the colleagues of the legislature as the MLA of the Year this year. I'm very honored to do that, but as recognition of all elected officials, again, serving my constituents, making sure their voice is heard at meetings and committees in the legislature, and then other things like look at the work at the airport. That's very meaningful for people in Lethbridge. Our exhibition grounds, that building coming along, agricultural opportunity, tourism opportunity. We've got the new school on the west side that should be breaking ground this year. Things of that nature. I think that service to the constituents will be what it takes to show Albertans that we've heard them, we've heard their needs, and we're doing everything possible to meet those needs.
Where is the province really at fiscally, though, and what will that mean for Lethbridge moving forward? Would maybe the province potentially look at helping the city build a third bridge?
We'll have to see exactly what happens with that, Hal. It's not yet, in my understanding, been formulated into a formal ask of the city to the province. But I'm proud in the last 2.5 years, the previous administration had 5 major asks. We have funded all 5 of those major asks for the city of Lethbridge. That's Exhibition Park, that's the airport, that's the twinning of Highway 3, that's some significant deferred maintenance at the university, and it's broadband. So I've been very proud to work with the city of Lethbridge, achieve their goals in a timely fashion. And if the third bridge is on the list in the upcoming administration, we'll have to work on that too. But so far we've been batting 1,000 now. Hal?
Our city, like many others across Canada, is still dealing with an opioid crisis. The Lethbridge Overdose Prevention Society and Moms Stop the Harm want to see a more permanent solution when it comes to helping those seeking treatment for their drug addictions. Now, outside of the mobile supervised injection site that we have here, what else is really in the works to help those who want the help?
Sure, Hal. I think it's a very important topic and issue, particularly for Lethbridge. That's why our government has invested in and announced almost $15 million of supports for treatment beds, for ongoing operations, for long-term services and treatments. It does take some time to build those beds. I am very excited about the potential of a sod turning for the new supportive beds here in Lethbridge in the very near future. But we're all a little impatient for those services to actually be more available for those who need them. So we've got a little bit more time to go, but again, as we come out of winter into spring, as those building activities pick up, we'll actually be able to start seeing those buildings get built, those beds be in place, those service workers manning those beds, and that will make a major change. And I look forward to that, to really meeting the needs in an ongoing, long-term kind of basis to, again, help those who want to get out of addictions onto a better path. we're getting there, but it does take some time.
Nathan, the opposition NDP has said the reason why we're not attracting a lot of doctors here to our region is they basically Google, crime stats, different cities, different communities across the province, and Lethbridge comes up quite high, and it scares some people from actually moving here to our city. What can we do to really change that mindset and attract more physicians, which are sorely needed here in our region?
Absolutely. I think we need to talk about all the good things that are happening instead of just focusing on the bad. And in fact, our new police chief and the work that he's done in every single sector of the city, he has seen with his new administrative process, crime levels go down. So the trend is in the right way. He continues to work incredibly hard. So I applaud our police service for all the efforts, despite the scrutiny they've been under. They've done a great job and continue to correct failings of the past. They're moving in a good direction. And again, we need to talk about the things that are going well, not just the things that we continue to work on, which are true, and we are trying to address those, but we've got a lot going for us. We have a very stable agricultural economy, food and food product, food services. We're increasing our trade to the States. Our construction and housing industry has seen some of the best numbers in quite some time. We've got lots of manufacturing as well. Things are going much better and trending much better. And I just hope that rise continues for the betterment of Lethbridge. And that, I think, coupled with a very good standard of living and a low cost of living, should attract doctors as we move forward on that trajectory as well.
Lethbridge East MLA Nathan Neudorf, thanks so much for your time today.
You bet. Thank you, Hal.
COVID has changed the way we work and how we work. So what are the labor and job trends for 2022? Well, joining me today from Vancouver is Canadian Workplace Culture Index founder and CEO, Antonio Giovanovich. Antonio, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Glad to have you on. And I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
Thanks so much. Perfectly.
Awesome. So, Antonio, our experience with COVID transformed so many part of our lives here in Canada. Probably one of the biggest is how and where we work. So what is the Canadian Workplace Culture Index looking like?
We're looking at workplace satisfaction, company cares, diversity and inclusion, information and recognition, employee connection, and loyalty. So those are the different workplace attributes that we're looking at.
So when speaking of the Canadian workplace culture, how have you observed the workplace change, especially since the pandemic?
The workplace has changed. The workplace is now more diverse in many ways. We're managing multi-generational workforces. They're looking for more than just ping pong culture. They're seeking growth and development opportunities. They crave mobility, learning and development, multi-generational, multi-ethnic, working from here, working from there, and almost everywhere. The new workforce is more dynamic and diverse in every way than ever before. Generationally, it's not just millennials anymore and Gen Z stampeding their way into the workforce.
Okay, and I know, of course, with the pandemic too, we've seen so many layoffs and resignations, early retirements. So what are your predictions of how the labor market will evolve in 2022 and beyond?
I think the great return or not is, remote, hybrid, or in-person. Flexibility and work-life balance are not new topics, but the pandemic has shown a great spotlight on non-conventional work arrangements now more than ever before. And as companies look to the future, they're contemplating various models, with some preferring a full-scale return to the office and others contemplating remote work, and many trying to sort out the particulars of the hybrid work arrangement and various security protocols where people are working from home, whereas in the past, there wasn't such a large volume of individuals working from home. There's a new benefits and perks paradigm. Everybody's thinking about, individuality as a valued principle in today's workforce. And this is being reflected by the benefits of the perks that our different employers are offering. What was once kind of one size fits all for benefits. It has morphed into somewhat of a buffet, with progressive employers becoming increasingly creative in their offerings. Staples such as health insurance and personal development opportunities remain common, but have joined by flexibility and programs offering lifestyle wellness programs with an ever increasing number of platforms for sharing information. Employers can expect both successes and failures to be amplified as they kind of try to navigate this somewhat new world, but they're really considering equity and equality in their benefits. And now it's more important than ever with the workforce being so dynamic and the competition for talent being so fierce. We've seen perks like, perks like free scuba lessons, pizza on Fridays, or ping pong tables have lost their luster, while rock solid benefits for employees' long-term personal and professional success, including professional development, career growth, group retirement planning, these are just some of the things that are emerging that employers are considering.
Yeah, well, that sounds like positive changes, actually, and more long-term benefits for the employee, absolutely. Would you say that it's more of an employee's market these days?
100% it is. We see employers all over that are struggling to find top talent, and they're one of the challenges I see is employers feel at times that the employees or talent pool has a lack of appreciation for what they're offering. But on the other side of things, the employers, in many respects, have done a poor job in communicating the employer value proposition outside of just salary. What are they offering to attract them, differentiate themselves, and position themselves as a leader in their industry, or somewhere that's just got a great culture? People want more than salary now. They realize, the pandemic has really brought work-life blend to the mix.
Yeah, absolutely. So on the employee side of the labor equation, what do you find that the staff are really looking for in 2022?
Yeah, I guess overall, the youngest Canadians are less happy with their jobs, least likely to agree that their organization is a good fit for them, and least likely to see themselves working at the same organization in 5 years. Our research with the Angus Reid Institute presented that 60% of Canadians say they'd leave their current job for the same position at another organization for a 10% raise. BIPOC Canadians are three times more likely to state that they've been let go from their company because of COVID. And more than 30% of Canadians believe that they get away with bullying at their organizations. So employees over the age of 35 showed high levels of workplace satisfaction and loyalty, more loyalty than employees under the age of 35. Organizations in the coming year are going to have to do a good job of really demonstrating their overall value proposition to recruit talent. The market is definitely an employee's market, and many people are getting multiple job offers. And I know as an organization ourselves, the talent that we're recruiting, we're trying to do a good job of sharing what we offer outside of just the salary and benefit, like staple health and dental. How are we creating a culture of belonging and giving them opportunities for advancement and just overall supporting their well-being? And I think that's what people are looking for in 2022.
Right, interesting. And it looks like employee retention is kind of a problem. So are companies looking for ways to help employees identify with the culture in their workplace as a way to retain staff? I know you've also mentioned the change in benefits, and I mean, I don't know if salary will be an option, salary increases will be an option, especially we're looking at inflation in 2022 as well.
definitely. I think salary is just kind of that's table stakes nowadays. Everybody needs to earn a living and wants a living wage, obviously, and to be compensated well. But I just was chatting with a senior partner at a large consulting firm the other day, and he shared that they gave raises to a large percentage of the team across the country, and that didn't move the dial at all. People were still exiting the organization at the same pace. And so they're really struggling to do a good job of sharing. They offer a lot of different benefits and perks to the employees, but they really haven't done a good job of packaging that and letting people know and making them aware of it. And also, employers, I think, that are very rigid in their mindset of not allowing any flexibility or accommodation, I think their time is coming and the employees are going to be exiting those organizations and looking for organizations that cater to their lifestyle needs, but also expect performance as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, who would have thought that we'd seen the day where the employees can call the shots? Why do you think, Antonio, that there's such a huge paradigm shift right now? Like, did the pandemic have anything to do with it? When people got laid off, was it a time for them to reflect on what they really wanted? Or were they busy upgrading their skills and gaining new skills, making themselves more valuable to companies? What's caused this big shift?
I think it's multifactorial, really. I think the pandemic definitely shone light on that. I think for a long time, people were hesitant to trust employees to do a good job, and not being in the office 9 to 5 or dying at your desk. People have realized that you can have a remote work situation, and some organizations are going fully remote. Some were fully remote prior to the pandemic, like Zapier out of San Francisco. They've been fully remote, and they actually don't want their employees, too many of them, to congregate in one location because it's against their culture. I think now that employers are just seeing that there's a shortage of great talent out there. And as the boomers kind of head out of the workforce, there's a new generation coming in, and they have different value structure than some of the previous generations, that some people might think, well, they were ready to die at their desk. And, older workers were seeking more traditional benefits and compensation from work, while younger workers, they're seeking a great culture to work with and be aligned with a great culture. And they want to be proud of the organization that they work with. Are they a B corporation? Are they thinking about just the shareholder value or all the stakeholders involved? Are they doing great work in sustainability, the environment, socially? People put their beliefs and values and align that with company values and beliefs.
That's a really good point you brought up, especially with the younger generation. Their values are completely different than some of the older generations. Like you said, they look more to the environment and see is this a green company that I'm working for? I think we're going to be seeing trends like that coming up in the future with the younger generation hitting the workforce for sure. And obviously, Antonio, like you mentioned before, so over the past 21 months, we've seen more and more people working from home. Maybe companies that wouldn't normally allow their employees to work from home, now it's happening. Do you think that this is a trend that's expected to continue? And when you compiled your research, what did you find from businesses about how do they feel about staff working remotely?
I guess it depends on the leadership. I feel like a lot of employers feel like they've been forced into a situation that they didn't really like because they weren't comfortable with it or grew up in this type of arrangement. But I also feel at the same time, there was a need. The need was there to shift and push the limit on flexibility, and it brought so many amazing opportunities to be doing, interviews such as this and connecting with people. And performance-wise, I think that's where people struggle right now, is how do they perform? But I think it all starts with your hiring practices. And if you're bringing the right people in and they've got a default to action, default to transparency belief system, then you're going to be getting the right people in the door, and you don't have to worry about looking over them or, as an employer, feeling like you don't know what they're doing.
So interesting, the world that we're living in right now. Thank you so much, Antonio, for coming on. We really appreciate having you on today.
Thank you for having me, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Antonio Giovanovich is the Canadian Workplace Culture Index founder and a CEO. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks for watching.